50 bone-chilling tales of horror that haunt you forever, scary stories to dread in the rain. The rain poured down like sheets of ice, each drop dragging with it the ghosts of 1,000 untold stories. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a deep growl that seemed to echo the fears trapped within the hearts of those who dared to listen. The local diner was full, but the air was thick with an eerie silence, as the patrons whispered about the legend swirling around the old Morton house, a place where shadows lurked and screams melted into the night. People said the house was once home to a family who vanished without a trace. The kind of strange that makes your skin crawl was woven into its very foundation. Flickering lights and strange sounds echoed only at midnight, driving the bravest to turn back time and time again. An old man, his gnarled fingers trembling, shared that on stormy nights you could see the figures of children playing in the garden, their joyful laughter dancing on the wind. But nobody dared go and find out if it was true. No one wanted to be too close when the laughter turned to wails. Even as dusk crept in, a chilling breeze swept through the diner, freezing smiles in place. Just as someone mentioned the ghost of old Mrs. Morton, the lights flickered violently before plunging the room into darkness, and then, a flash. Just for a split second, the outline of a woman, her eyes hollow and pleading, materialized before them, leaving gasps in its wake. Some clutched their throats, others froze, unsure if they should scream or stay silent. The atmosphere was electric, tinged with an ominous promise, the kind that promised something was about to break. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The lights came back on, revealing wide eyes and open mouths, all staring at the booth where the figure had been just a moment before. Then, another boom of thunder rolled through, this time so loud it rattled the windows. With hearts pounding, they exchanged nervous glances, the unsettling feeling growing deeper. By the time the waitress came back with their coffees, all the laughter and chit-chat had vanished. Instead, the disquiet hovered above them like a dark cloud. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the back, the sound of something heavy toppling over. Everyone jumped, fear etched across their faces. They didn't want to investigate. What if whatever haunted the Morton house had now followed them? Chills curled down their spines as they turned to each other, voices barely above a whisper. Do you think it's linked? What if it's a warning? One voice broke through the tension, trembling with disbelief. Would they dare to find out? In that moment, the atmosphere turned electric once more. What would they discover if they ventured beyond the safety of the diner? And if their curiosity got the best of them, would the ghosts of Morton House share their stories or claim them forever? The crash echoed like a thunderbolt, cutting through the suffocating silence of the diner. The patrons hesitated, eyes darting between one another and the shadowed doorway where the noise had come from. A woman, her fingers trembling around the coffee cup, broke the stillness. Should we call someone? No one answered. All they could hear was the relentless beating of the rain against the windows, each drop hammering home the tension. The waitress, wide-eyed and pale, backed away from her customers, her voice barely a whisper. I'll check it out. No! The old man shouted, the urgency in his tone slicing through the air. You don't want to go there? If it's true what they say, it's best to stay inside. His frail hand shook as if trying to ward off some unseen monster. But the curiosity was contagious. One of the younger guys in the booth, all bravado, pushed back from the table. I'm gonna take a look. If there's something there, it's better to know, right? Before anyone could object, he slid off the vinyl seat and made his way towards the back, the squeak of his shoes punctuating the dull roar of the storm outside. "Don't do it!" Another voice hissed, but it was too late. The young man had disappeared into the shadows, leaving an unsettling void behind. The minutes stretched on, turning into an eternity. Every flicker of the diner lights felt like a warning. Then came another crash, this one sharper, more desperate, like a cry for help. "Did you hear that?" Someone across the room squeaked. They all leaned toward the back, breaths held tightly in their chests. Just then, the lights flickered again, and the wind howled through the cracks in the walls. As the diner plunged momentarily into darkness, the patrons huddled closer, clutching each other as arms, their hearts racing in sync with the storm outside. When the lights returned, a figure stood at the threshold between the diner and the abyss of the hallway. It was the young man, his shirt soaked, face pale, eyes wide with terror. It's not empty," he gasped, breathless. "There is someone back there." Gasps echoed through the diner. The waitress stepped back, pressing against the counter. "What do you mean?" she stammered. "It was a kid, I swear I heard a child crying." It echoed before he could finish. The lights flickered again, a malicious chortle dancing through the room, as if the shadows themselves were taunting them. A tension-filled silence rippled through the diner. The notion of investigating was one thing, but the idea that a child's plea for help lay just beyond their reach was another kind of horror, a moral twist that pulled at their very souls. Finally, the old man's voice broke through the dread. "We need to help," but he struggled with words. "What if it's a trap? What if the stories are true?" The air thickened with an unshakable tension. Would they stand by while a life hung in the balance, or would curiosity drag them into a nightmare they couldn't escape? As if in answer to their unspoken question, the lights flickered one last time before plunging them into darkness again. "Let us get out while we can," someone choked out, the fear crackling in their voice. But the allure of the unknown nagged at them like an itch, the promise of both danger and revelation hanging tantalizingly before them. With shaky breaths and racing hearts, they glanced once more towards the back. Would they dare cross the threshold into that darkened corridor? Or was the darkness something they could never comprehend? And in that trembling moment, the child's wail echoed through the diner. They had a choice to make. What would their decisions unleash? What horrors awaited on the other side? The diner's lights flickered again, casting uneven shadows that danced like restless spirits against the walls. Every passerby shared a mutual understanding. Something sinister lay just beyond their threshold, lurking in the darkness. The young man, standing frozen, looked back at the terrified faces lined up in the diner. "You have to believe me," he cried, his voice cracking. "I heard a kid calling for help. It was so real." Someone in the corner muttered, "How can a child be here in a storm like this? It doesn't make sense." The voices of doubt merged with the relentless storm, outside torrential and unforgiving, like the tension simmering within the diner. "Maybe we should just call the police," someone suggested, though the suggestion trembled on their lips. "Isn't that what we're supposed to do?" But the old man shook his head vehemently. "No one is coming. And if they do, we'll just give them more trouble." His worried eyes darted to the shadows. "I've heard tales of others who've gone too far back there. They never came back out." At that moment, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness. A collective gasp escaped as the wail intensified, ringing through the air like a death knell. Panic spread like wildfire. It had surged from one person to another until it overwhelmed them all. "Enough!" the waitress suddenly shouted, her voice sharp and commanding. "I'm going back there!" her resolve surprising everyone. But before she could step away, a hand shot out, gripping her arm tightly. "Wait! You can't just go. What if you don't come back?" The waitress pulled free, shaking her head defiantly. If there's any chance that a child is in danger, I can't just stand here. Someone has to help. With every pulse of adrenaline, the group felt the weight of their choices. The old man's warnings loomed over them like a storm cloud, but the sound of a child's cry begged for action. "Let me come with you," the young man said, stepping forward. "I heard it," it called out. "I can't let anyone go alone." His eyes were wild with both fear and determination. "Fine. I'm not getting left behind either," shouted a young woman at the counter, her voice fierce. She gripped her jacket as if readying for battle. One by one, faces lit with a collective resolve, a web of courage tangling amidst uncertainty. Unwinding toward the back, they formed a small army against the darkness, pushing through instincts of fear. The distant wailing seemed almost to beckon them, pulling them closer. "On three," the young man whispered, heart racing. 1, 2, 3. They pressed through the treacherous hallway, breaths shallow, shoulders brushing as if their closeness could shield them from whatever lay in wait. The air felt thick and electric, pregnant with the echoes of the child's cries that pulled them deeper into the shadows. But as they moved, another crashing noise sounded, a sharp twist of metal, and a chilling silence followed. The fear settled like a weight in their stomachs, and then came the unmistakable sound of laughter, soft and eerie, contrasting sharply against the child's desperate cries. "What is happening?" someone gasped, panic rising anew, and then, horrifyingly, before they could grasp the unfolding reality, a figure emerged from the shadows, neither child nor adult, but something altogether different, a shape swirling with an uncanny familiarity. "Help us," it whispered, the voice intimate yet foreign. The question hung in the air. Could they trust what they saw? What truth would they unveil as they approached? The horror of their decisions was just beginning to seep into the cracks of their sanity. With each trembling step forward, the line between salvation and doom dangerously blurred. What awaited them as they crossed further into the shadows? The air turned colder as they stood, hearts racing, staring into the darkness. The figure began to take shape, its form flickering like a faulty neon sign. The shadows curled around it, blurring features, making it difficult to perceive whether it was a child's silhouette or something far more sinister. "Stay back," the young woman shouted, her voice a mix of fear and authority. She stepped in front of the waitress, who stood there transfixed. The laughter from the shadows swirled around them, rising and falling like a tide that tugged at their sanity. "Help us," the voice whispered again, more insistent now, laced with desperation. But it felt wrong. Too soft, too sweet against the backdrop of their dread. The young man took a tentative step forward, curiosity mixed with panic flooding his veins. "What kind of help do you need?" he called out, trying to sound braver than he felt. The figure's laughter echoed again, chilling and mocking. "You've come looking for a child," it replied, voice dripping with playful malice. "But children are never all they seem." What did that mean? The air grew thick around them, shadows pressing closer as if trying to swallow them whole. "Let us move back," the old man urged quietly, his voice trembling. "We should leave now." Panic had a hold on him, palpable in the twitch of his hands and the widening of his eyes. "No! We can't turn back now," shouted the young man, throwing the old man's warning aside. "If there's a child, it deserves our help. We can't just abandon it." Suddenly, the lights in the hallway flickered back on, bright and blinding. For a heartbeat, everything froze, and they all squinted into the light, desperately trying to make sense of their surrounding. The figure wavered, then vanished into thin air, leaving them with nothing but silence and the echo of their own fear. "What the hell was that?" someone whispered, nodding towards the vacant darkness where the figure had been. "I don't know, but we have to investigate," the young man pressed on, eyes darting around. He could feel the panic rising, a living thing that clawed at his insides. "Let us split up," the young woman suggested, her bravado slipping. We can cover more ground. No! Cried the old man, desperation clinging to his voice. That's exactly what they want. That's how they'll take you. The waitress, now pale and trembling, glanced uncertainly at the group. What if that was a trick? What if it's here to lure us in? Her words hung in the air like a noose, tightening around their resolve. Decide, shouted the young man, frustration boiling over. Either we stay here and do nothing, or we go look. We can't let fear fester while we wait. His challenge echoed through the air, louder than the storm still raging outside. Fear hung in the balance with urgency, choices hanging heavy like clouds ready to burst. The group exchanged worried glances, panic and determination dancing in their eyes. They could feel the pressure growing, breathing in the intensity of their shared moment. Fine, the young woman said finally, voice steadier. We go together, but we stick close. No splitting up. There was a murmur of agreement. They moved deeper, the shadows thickening around them again, fingers of darkness grasping at their ankles. The further they got, the louder the echoes of laughter became, intertwining with the whispers of cries for help. The hallway twisted and turned, growing darker the more intrepid they became. What awaited them in the belly of this unknown place, where shadows were more than just darkness? All at once, the cries surged back, now layered with something more sinister, a chorus that made skin crawl. Help us, it was a chant, growing louder and louder, vibrating through their bones. As they marched forward, lights flickered ominously, leaving shadows to leap and sway in wild abandon. Each step felt like a descent into madness, the ground shifting beneath their feet. Suddenly, a door burst open at the far end, slamming against the wall, revealing a glimmer of light. A figure, small and trembling, stood illuminated in the doorway. Leave. Now it whispered, eyes wide with terror. Was this the child? What did she mean? As the group hesitated, an unseen force surged forward behind them, darkness spilling out like a flood. Run! The young men yelled, but the shadows had already grasped at their ankles, dragging them back into the depths. What awaited them in that tempest of shadows and screams? Would they see the truth behind the eerie laughter, or was it already too late for them to escape? The group bolted down the hallway, hearts pounding like war drums against their rib cages. The shadows clawed at their heels, a relentless tide pulling them back, threatening to swallow them whole. They stumbled, breathless and wild-eyed, the cries echoing like a haunting melody close behind. Don't look back, the young woman shouted, her voice surprisingly steady, as she struggled to keep pace with the others. Just keep running. The old man grunted, pushing through the weight of shadows that seemed intent on ensnaring them. Each time he glanced over his shoulder, the darkness flickered with glimpses of nightmarish figures, grotesque reflections of what they might become if they didn't escape. Panic coursed through him, sharp and biting. We need to find a way out, he gasped, fighting the encroaching dread that threatened to crush him. Suddenly, a door swung open, revealing a small, dim-lit room. The walls were lined with ancient wood, and the floorboards creaked under their collective weight. Without thinking, the group plunged inside, slamming the door shut behind them, sealing off the nightmarish pursuit at least for the moment. Panting, they leaned against the door, trying to catch their breath. What just happened? The waitress stammered, her eyes darting around the room as if expecting shadows to spill in through the cracks. Was that a child? I don't know, replied the young man, still shaking from adrenaline. But if that was a warning, we just made a mistake coming in here. His words hung heavy in the air, thicker than the dust motes floating in the dim light. The old man's brow furrowed. This place, it feels wrong. His voice was a whisper, cracking under the weight of reality. What if we're trapped? What if this was it? Then they heard it, the soft, unsettling laughter seeping through the walls, wrapping around them like a snake. It echoed with a sense of familiarity, as if the shadows themselves were mocking them for their foolishness. "Maybe we should just leave," the young woman suggested hesitantly, eyeing the door as if it were a living thing, vibrating with malice. "None of this feels right." "No!" the young man snapped, his eyes steadying with a fierce determination. "If something is waiting for us out there, we can't just let it have power over us. Whatever it is, we have to face it. It's the only way to break this." With a collective nod, they moved deeper into the room. The faint light flickered, revealing worn furniture and strange trinkets, remnants of a life long abandoned. A dusty mirror caught the young woman's eye, its surface reflecting not just her face, but shadows swirling behind her, hints of twisted forms lurking just out of view. "Look," she said, her voice a whisper. "I think that mirror is showing something." Before anyone could respond, a loud bang jolted them. The door rattled as if something was pounding on the other side, furious and impatient. Each thud sent shivers down their spines. The shadows danced in frenzy, spilling across the floor, swirling at their feet like ink in water. "Get away from it!" the old man screamed, pulling the young woman back, just as a dark mass seemed to surge forth from the mirror. Faces twisted in agony flashed before them, mouths screaming silent pleas, desperation etched across their features. Was that the price of returning to the living? "They're trapped," the waitress said, her voice cracking as she clutched the young woman's arm, eyes wide. "Just like us. We can't stay here. We have to break the mirror." "But how?" The young man stared at the shifting shapes, horror coating his thoughts. "What if it's a portal? What if we let it out?" A scream pierced through their thoughts, drowning their rationality. "Help us!" the voices cried in unison, resonating in their bones, a chilling plea that resonated with despair. The wall shook in response. As the group turned toward the door, hesitation morphed into fright. Should they risk it all, unleash shadows on the other side, or test whatever lay beyond the cursed mirror? The air thickened with their dread, and time felt suspended as the laughter intensified. "Do we break the mirror?" the young woman inquired, desperation clawing at her throat. "Or do we confront the horror that seeks to drag us back?" The old man replied, counting every scar on his worn soul. The darkness thickened around them, closing in like a predator about to strike. They had to choose, and fast. Choices had consequences, and now they were at a crossroads that could seal their fate. "Let us decide," the young man yelled as the pounding grew more furious. "Now!" But what answer would they take? Was the fight against shadows worth the risk of facing what lay beyond the mirror? Would one choice lead to salvation, while the other beckoned inevitable doom? The crescendo of haunting voices built to an unbearable climax as their minds raced. What would they choose to save themselves from the shadowy embrace lurking just beyond their sight? A pall of silence fell over the room, heavy and suffocating. The muffled thuds against the door echoed like the beating of monstrous hearts. In that moment, adrenaline surged through their veins, propelling them toward desperation. "Break the mirror!" shouted the young woman, her voice rising above the chaos. The shadows seemed to pulse with her words, as if the very idea sparked something deep within their dark nature. "No! We don't know what it will unleash," the young man countered, anxiety tightening his chest. His hands were trembling, caught between dread and resolve. Suddenly, the mirror vibrated, rippling as though something just beyond the surface was trying to break free. Faces distorted within it morphed into figures that danced and twisted like marionettes, amplifying their fears. "This isn't just a choice," the old man cried. "We're making a pact with whatever is trapped in there. We don't know if it's good or evil enough." The waitress shouted, her eyes wide with terror. "We're running out of time. It's going to get in. We need to act." The laughter swelled, cruel and mocking, wrapping around them like a tightening noose. Temptation lay just beneath the surface of the glass, promises of power, escape, and answers. Fear bubbled in their throats, stifling their thoughts, making them flail for a solution that wouldn't cost them dearly. Make a choice. The young man's voice cracked with strain, desperation dripping from every syllable. His gaze darted between the mirror and the door, akin to a boxer caught between two rivals, each equally dangerous. The voices from the depths of the mirror morphed, shifting the pleas into something sinister. "Come join us, be one of us, what do they want?" the young woman asked, trepidation lacing her words like poison. Panic flickered in her eyes as she backed away from the mirror's shimmering frame. "Whatever they are, they're not alive. They want to pull us into their hell," the old man replied, clenching his fists. "We need to break the cycle." With renewed conviction, the young man stepped toward the mirror. "Let us see what you have to offer. If we're going to die anyway, I'd rather know why than live in the dark." "No!" the waitress shouted, her heart pounding in her chest. "This isn't just curiosity. This is a death sentence. Do you want to be stuck here?" He was desperate, driven by a hunger for answers that shadowed their existence. Suddenly, the door slammed open, thick darkness spilling into the room like a consuming tide. Shadows wrapped around the old man, and he barely managed to shout, "Now! Do it now!" The young man lunged forward with a fist raised, ready to shatter the cursed mirror, while the group's screams echoed loudly, reverberating off the walls. Time slowed as he closed the distance, his heart racing against the impending doom encroaching from all sides. But just then, a cold hand snaked around his wrist. He spun to find the young woman's face twisted in horror, frozen in dread. "Don't! You might crash." Glass burst into a million shards, glimmering like stars in the dim light. Silence embraced the space, and in that instant, the world tilted. A pulse of energy surged forth, sucking them into a pitch-black void. Screams melted into the air as reality unraveled around them, their fate uncertain. What awaited them on the other side? Had breaking the mirror fractured their escape or opened a door to something far worse? Everything went dark, and only one thought lingered. Had they made the ultimate mistake, or had they just begun to uncover the true horror of their predicament? Falling. They fell into a dark abyss that seemed to stretch on infinitely. It was as if time itself had shattered like glass, no sense of direction, no hint of what lay below. The cold surrounded them, penetrating their skin and forcing the breath from their lungs. When they finally hit something solid, it felt like crashing onto a field of ice. Pain shot through the young man's back as he struggled to sit up. Panic surged through him as he scanned the vast emptiness surrounding them. The old man groaned next to him, and the waitress gasped in fear. "Where are we?" The young woman's voice trembled as she stood up, brushing off imaginary dust and despair. In an endless void lit only by faint glimmers of a haunting glow, the reflections of their fears flickered like hungering shadows around them. Everything echoed in whispers, half-formed words, pleas, and regrets, all intermingling into a dreadful symphony. "What happened?" the waitress murmured, looking back toward the spot where they had fallen. But there was nothing there except darkness. It was the mirror. "We unleashed something," the old man replied, his voice thick with worry, as if he had aged decades in mere seconds. "Now it's here, with us." Suddenly, the glimmers of cold light began to coalesce into shapes, figures shrouded in darkness, their features obscured. Once more, distorted faces emerged, eyes vacant yet watching, lips twisted in mocking smiles. "Welcome, welcome home," their voices echoed in unison, a cacophony that sent chills spiraling through the group. The young man felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Home? This is a nightmare. Don't engage. Whatever they want, we need to resist," said the young woman, her eyes wide, scanning the growing legion of figures. As if in response, one shadow stepped forward, its presence suffocating like a heavy fog. The figure wore the recognizable silhouette of someone once familiar, a face they knew once. perhaps a distant memory of someone that he lost. Join us, it beckoned, voice hauntingly beautiful and unsettling. Here, there is no pain, no fear, no loss, just existence. No! Shouted the waitress, her voice filled with determination. We're not here to join you. We don't belong here. But the shadows only laughed. Their laughter was like nails scraping against glass, stirring the young man's insides. Foolish mortals, they taunted. You chose this fate. The mirror didn't break. It opened the doorway, and now you are ours. In a moment of clarity, the young man realized the truth. It's a trap. They're feeding off our fears. His voice pierced through the murmurings, igniting a fire of focus within the group. We have to fight, the old man shouted. We can't allow fear to control us. With that, they linked arms, forming a protective circle. The shadows pressed closer, their voices a swirling tempest of doubt and despair. What can you offer that we cannot? They dared the darkness, forgotten memories of love, hope, and courage igniting a spark within. As they stood resolute, the shadows recoiled for a brief moment, their mocking faces faltering, torn between hunger and an unexpected tremor of doubt. But in that frail moment of resistance, the darkness surged forward, a seething wave of rage and hunger that threatened to engulf them. A heartbeat skipped the ground beneath and trembled. The whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar. Would they be strong enough to face the fears entwined with their pasts? Or would they become forever lost within this nightmarish expanse? As the shadows lunged toward them, the group clenched their fists, hearts pounding. They had to choose, to fight or to succumb. But the answer lay shrouded in the void, waiting to reveal its most twisted truth. Would they find freedom or deeper bondage? The next blow against their spirits was coming, and the darkness was hungry. The shadows rushed in, a suffocating wave of anger and despair, clawing at their very souls, as if tasting their fear. The young man gritted his teeth, ready to fight, but the darkness whispered sweet nothings that gnawed at his resolve. It felt like a toxic mist invading his mind, creeping into the corners of his thoughts, amplifying every fear he had ever known. No! Not now! He forced himself to shout, desperation creasing his brow. Yet the memories unfolded before him, lost relationships, dreams shattered, every moment of regret spilling over like a broken dam. Each face twisted in the darkness resembled someone he once loved, their fates intertwined with his own. Remember who you are? The waitress's voice rang out, fierce and steady. She stood taller, her gaze piercing through the chaos. We fight back together. In unison, they squeezed each other as hands tighter, forming an unbreakable bond amid a tempest of evil. The shadows flinched, and for a heart-stopping moment, the cacophony of their taunts faded to a tense whisper. The old man, filled with age and wisdom, stepped forward. You can't have us. Our flow of life can never be extinguished. His voice was like distant thunder, rumbling through the void. Laughter erupted once more from the malicious depths of the shadows, but something had changed. The darkness hesitated, as if it feared the very vibrancy of their united souls. The figures recoiled slightly, their menacing forms flickering like fading candlelight. A lonely light in the dark, what good does it do? One shadow hissed, its voice sharp and cruel. It shows us the way, the young woman declared boldly. Light began to expand from within their circle, a gentle warmth melting away the icy grip of the void. With every ounce of courage they summoned, glimmers of radiant color burst forth, illuminating the grotesque faces that haunted them. We're not here for you, they shouted as one, their voices harmonizing with unseen power. And suddenly, the oppressive grip of the abyss faltered, as visions of fear dissolved into fragments. Yet, as the shadows waned, a new terror emerged, an immense shadow looming, more monstrous than the rest. Its shape shifted and churned. It roared with a sound that echoed in their bones, vibrating with pure and perfect dread. "What have you done?" the colossal figure thundered, its tone sharp enough to cut through the very fabric of reality. The ground beneath them convulsed. Cracks spiderwebbed through the surface, seeping dark tendrils that reached upward, as if the void itself wanted to reclaim what they had stolen. "Stay together!" the young man yelled, panic searing through him. They could feel the hypnotic pull of the void seeping into their bones, whispering lies and regrets, each taunt threatening to tear them asunder. "Do you think you can defy us?" the giant shadow howled, and their knees quaked at the terrible sight. "You were brought here for a reason. You are trapped in the cycle of your own making." The group faltered but held tight, searching for flickers of hope in the encroaching dark. They knew they were far from solid ground. Every breath was more challenging as despair sunk its claws deeper, suffocating their resolve. But the young woman wouldn't yield. "We choose our own path," she yelled defiantly, rage bubbling within her. In that instant, they submerged once more into unity, their combined light forming a brilliant heart amidst the chaos. How long could it sustain against the monstrous figure hungry to consume? Before them, darkness twisted into unimaginable shapes, and faces known and unknown roared in unison, threatening, challenging, and beckoning them to submit. But the ground beneath them pulsed, sending shockwaves of power coursing through their veins. Would they bend, or stand firm against the tide of terror that threatened to pull them under? Darkness swirled around them, wild and untamed, as the fight began anew. In the heart of this relentless shadow, the decision loomed: would they break the cycle, or would they be bound forever to the fears they fought so desperately to escape? The colossal shadow loomed before them, an embodiment of their worst fears. It pulsed with a sinister energy that matched the frantic beats of their racing hearts. The darkness writhed and twisted, forming twisted faces and grasping hands that reached out from the abyss, yearning to pull them into its depths. Each anguished scream sent chills racing down their spines. "Fight it! Don't let it in!" the waitress shouted, her voice a balm amidst the chaos. The warmth of her presence flickered like a flame, reminding them of the strength they had within. "Think of what you have to lose," the old man snapped, his voice steady though the ground shook. He held on to the vision of his grandchildren, their laughter ringing in his ears, a sound he was determined to hear again. "We can't let this shadow take our light." The young man, propelled by a surge of adrenaline, squeezed the hands of his companions tighter. "We are not alone," he shouted, his voice rising like a rallying cry against the overwhelming darkness. With each word, the light within them surged, fierce and defiant. They felt it sparking, charging through the air, igniting their souls. "Remember our joys," the young woman proclaimed. "Our love, our dreams. We are so much more than this darkness." Around them, emotions brewed and collided, morphing into a radiant energy that pushed back against the encroaching shadows. Colors splashed onto the gray landscape: the vivid hues of a summer day, the deep cerulean of a calm sea, the bright orange of a sunset that ignited the horizon. With each vision shared, the colossal shadow shrank, its power waning before their united front. But the giant figure's roar rattled them as it struggled, swelling with rage. "You think your memories can save you? You think your love can defy what you truly are?" The words dripped with malice as it lunged forward, trying to claw its way into their minds. "No!" the waitress yelled, and with a surge of will, she lunged forward, her light sharper than any blade. Together, they thrust their arms out, unleashing their combined force into the darkness. It felt like an explosion, a blinding flash illuminating the void, but was it enough? The monstrous figure shrieked, a terrible, tormenting sound that sent pulses of pain through their chests. "What have you unleashed upon yourselves?" it howled, limbs writhing as it distorted into grotesque forms, reminding them of all that haunted their pasts: guilt, sorrow, and despair. It shone a blinding light back at them, revealing fears they had buried deep. "Face it!" The young man pressed, struggling against the weight of memories threatening to drown him. We must confront what we've buried. With each flash of those painful images, every lost opportunity, every unkind word, he stepped boldly toward the entity. You may show us the truth, but we choose how to carry it. We can rise. The ground split beneath them, as fissures spidered, splitting their reality apart. With each step, he pulled forth the essence of his regrets, his past entwining with his present. Our lives are ours to forge, he shouted, voice booming with sudden strength. The shadows pulsed angrily, morphing and stretching as they absorbed the weight of their combined fears, flickering like a dying ember. But in doing so, they revealed a different path and opening, beckoning them forward, a chance to break free. And just as hope emerged, a chilling question slithered through the air. But what if the truth is more terrifying than the darkness? Their hearts raced. Could they really confront what lay ahead? Would they break the cycle of anguish, or embrace it once more, hurtling toward an unknown fate? As they grappled with their choice, the shadows began to howl, a cacophony that threatened to drown out their thoughts. What awaited them on the other side of that void? The answer lingered, heavy and enigmatic. Before them loomed a swirling tempest of darkness, slowly dematerializing into swirling mists. In that moment, as fear threatened to crush their spirits, something else flickered, faint whispers of hope woven amidst their memories. The young man's heart raced, his pulse matching the frantic rhythm of the shadows surrounding them. We can't let it control us, he thundered, his voice cutting through the chaos. Our lives are defined by our choices, not our fears. In an instant, the mere thought of their experiences, the laughter of friends, the warmth of family, the thrill of love ignited an inferno within them. Faces long forgotten flashed before their eyes, a gallery of light juxtaposed against the hollowness encroaching, each memory stronger than the last. We have each other, shouted the young woman, her voice unwavering. We believe in each other. As they clasped hands tighter, the shadows hesitated, their looming figures wavering, becoming lesser reflections of their former selves. The laughter resonated weaker, faltering before their combined strength. With a sudden swell of courage they had unearthed, the group surged forward, united in their defiance. The darkness rippled, and a consuming storm of emotion, pain, regret, and shadows from their past converged fiercely. Through the cacophony of chaotic energies, their bond glimmered with brilliant intensity. Let us break the chain, they shouted in unison, their voices harmonizing like a resounding bell cutting through the night. The connection among them transformed into radiant light, pushing farther against the shadows, illuminating their path ahead. The figures in the darkness curled and writhed, increasing their howl in panic. This can't be, one screamed. You're meant to be ours. Not anymore, they replied, as beams of pure, unyielding brightness shot through the void. The once mighty presence of shadow recoiled as though scalded, dissipating into tendrils that twisted against the light. The vortex of shadows shrieked, twisting into a maelstrom that spiraled violently, spiraling like a tornado threatening to collapse their new reality. But bound together, they grew stronger, and as they pushed forward, the light erupted around them. Can you feel it? The young woman squealed, hope resonating in her voice. We're breaking free. The shadowy tendrils screamed in unison, vibrating sorrowful, forlorn cries. No! You cannot escape your fears. But as the shadows faltered, crystalline shards of light erupted outward, carving a path through consuming darkness. Then, in a moment that felt like an eternity, they were hurled back into the diner, a jarring tumble that left them dizzy. The oppressive rain had quieted, and the air was sweet with clarity. The diner's lights flickered once, then returned to their warm glow, flooding the space with comfort and safety. They lay there, a tangle of limbs and gasps, relief washing over them like a soothing balm. An odd stillness cradled the room, legs tangled beneath each other, hearts still pounding. We made it? One murmured incredulously as if afraid to believe it. The traces of fear began to ebb, weaving into the laughter of siblings, the embrace of friends, their lives intertwined. They could face the darkness, but this time, together, they had the power to overcome it. The old man slowly pulled himself up, his eyes glistening with gratitude. "You fought well," he whispered, a small smile forming, and the others nodded, swallowing the weight of regret that hung in the air. As they stepped back from that threshold, slipping from the edge of night into the shimmering warmth of day, their shared worries began to ease. They learned that every fear they confronted became a memory forged in light, a truth to carry forward. "Wow," said the waitress, her eyes wide. "We actually did it. We're here." They exchanged glances, relieved laughter bubbling up, finding strength in the bonds they had created amidst darkness, knowing their stories would forever intertwine in this shared experience. Moments passed before the young man, now emboldened, stepped toward the door, a newfound resolve forming. "Let us go see if the Morton house has anything more to tell us," he suggested with a grin. They needed to confront the haunting house, unearth the secrets wrapped in shadows, not just for them, but for those lost souls still trapped within its walls. "Yes," the young woman replied, eyes shimmering with renewed respect for their adventure. Together. And as they stepped into the light of the rain-soaked street, the storm had cleared, leaving behind an invigorating freshness. They knew they could face any darkness that awaited them, the Morton house, or beyond, as long as they faced it together. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss what happens next in the story. This is the moment to show your support for our channel. Smash that like button now to help fuel the algorithm, and spread these tales even further. Flood the comments section below with your reactions. What did you think of the ending? Do you think teasing stories from the Morton house has merit? We want to hear your theories. And please, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends, who also need to see the wild conclusion to our chilling tale.